Roger, welcome back. Always an honor to have you.
Benny, I'm delighted to be with you.
One of these days, Roger, I'm going to start taking fashion advice from you. I promise. I promise you that. I know it's been years in the making, but I'm going to start. You start being respectable, like Roger.
Yesterday, I had the honor of speaking, of course, as you did, to the Turning Point USA conference in Tampa. And I was the very last speaker, essentially. And therefore, I went over my time. And the engineers are going crazy, screaming, "Oh, my God, he's pulling a Benny Johnson," which I kind of loved, if you want to.
I'll take it, Roger. That's right. And in the long arc of history, someday I will be as dapper of a dresser as Roger, and then Roger, you can be as long-winded as me. Roger, I'm going to shut up. To that point, thank you. I'm going to shut up and just let you take the floor here. What is your take? And we have a great post from you here on X that I'd love to put up, and maybe just directionally, you're saying that the president needs to direct Pam Bondi to unseal everything in the Epstein file. And that's the way out here. The floor is yours, Roger. How does this get fixed? How does this crisis get fixed?
First of all, I think it's important for some background. I'm the first major author in the United States to write extensively about Jeffrey Epstein. If you go to my book, The Clintons' War on Women, the longest chapter in the book, entitled Orgy Island, title I took from our friend Sean Hannity, it tells you who his clients are, not all of them, but some of the most prominent ones. I had the flight logs for the Lolita Express. I get granular on the relationship between the Clintons and Jeffrey Epstein. I think it's important to understand Donald Trump cut Jeffrey Epstein off prior to Epstein being exposed and convicted as a sex criminal in Florida. But Bill and Hillary Clinton continued to take millions of dollars with him, continued to do business with him. The Terramar Foundation, which was a grooming pool, really, run by Ghislane Maxwell, was completely funded by the Clinton Global Initiative. This is all in my book. So, of course, I favor full disclosure regarding Epstein. The simplest and easiest way to do this, in my opinion, since it is the Trump administration that charged him with 2 counts. One, they account for child sex trafficking, and secondly, account for conspiring to engage in child sex trafficking. The president should direct the attorney general to tell the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Newark to move immediately in court to release all of that grand jury testimony that as well as the grand jury testimony for Ghislane Maxwell, so we can see the facts. They cannot charge you with committing child sex trafficking without telling people to whom you trafficked the children. This is the fastest, easiest way to do this. I think it should be done tomorrow. Now, as far as Ghislane Maxwell testifying for Congress, I think this would be great. I think she should testify. I can tell you this. Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to be very, very embarrassed. Former Democrat Governor Bill Richardson is no longer with us, or he would be embarrassed. Former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell of Maine was on the island 14 times. Don't think he was going for the weather, Benny. I think he was going to be very embarrassed. The former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, visiting the island multiple times. My book names names. You can go to EpsteinTruthBook.com, EpsteinTruthBook.com, and order it. It's all there. I've been talking about this since 2015.
Roger, one of the reasons why it's so important to have you, you're like a truth index for American political history, and you're not scared to talk about situations and episodes like this one, which I can't figure out. Why is Ghislane Maxwell in the seat of honor at the Clinton wedding? The only one. Bill Clinton has a sole daughter. Why is she sitting there leering at this wedding? Please unpack this relationship.
Well, she was, of course, Epstein's pimp. She was in charge of trolling the bus stations and the train stations looking for, children who had no parents or who were estranged from their parents. They're the easiest children to kidnap and traffic. She was making all the arrangements for him. I think she knew his business inside and out. She, again, by the Biden administration, she was charged with conspiracy to engage in child sex trafficking. But yet again, in her case, no other conspirators are identified. Uh, the U.S. attorney who handled the Epstein case and the Maxwell case and the P. Diddy case, another cover-up, all the same people. This is Damian Williams, the Democrat U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, and Maureen Comey, who just happens to be the daughter of one of the great orchestrators of the Russian collusion hoax, who himself, I suspect, will be facing charges very shortly. James Comey, the former FBI director. So I would really love to see Maxwell testify. I think we would learn a lot. But what we learn is going to exonerate President Trump. I'm sick of this claim. Oh, Trump is in the files. I've seen the files. Yes, it's absolutely true. On one occasion, Donald Trump and his wife, Marla Maples, and his daughter, Tiffany, flew from New York City, actually Teterboro in New Jersey, to Palm Beach on a Friday and flew back on a Saturday. That proves what? We have the testimony, both written and in a 6-hour interview I did with Virginia Giuffre, who said that Trump was only in Epstein's home once, and that was for a public event, for a charity event, and he acted like a perfect gentleman. It was not Donald Trump who visited Jeffrey Epstein in New York. That was Steve Bannon. It was not Donald Trump who visited him in his Paris apartment. That was Steve Bannon. Steve has evidently done a documentary about him. I'd like to see that documentary. I don't know how one would justify having anything to do with someone who's already been convicted at that point in Florida for sex crimes. But, Steve should clear the air on this. He's got 15 hours of footage of him interviewing Epstein. Could be very revealing, might help shed light on who Epstein's clients were. Steve should release that audio and video immediately.
I could not agree more. I actually texted Steve about that and said, if there's ever a time to find out more, and where the American public are ravenous for further information, I mean, you'd be doing a huge public service for that. And I know Steve was asked about that this weekend and said that he's going to be releasing it. So we hope that happens. Something that was released, Roger, that I want to get your take on, since you are a subject matter expert here. There was some deposition material that was released approximately 1 year ago, 18 months ago, from some of the Epstein victims. And they were asked constantly about President Trump, and none of them even knew him or ever saw him. And this is available in the documents. Anybody can go see him. But they were also asked about Bill Clinton, and many of them had stories about Bill, including one that says Bill Clinton liked him young, directly from Jeffrey Epstein. Some of the other victims say that they witnessed personally Bill Clinton on the island, that they witnessed personally Bill Clinton leering and lurking about the island in mysterious rooms. These are the direct witness testimonies. These documents are public, Roger. I mean, nobody has to, you don't have, there's no illusion here. They're in black and white, and they're from the court. Why has Bill Clinton never been brought in by federal investigators to answer questions about this?
No, you make a very good point. Virginia Giuffre, who was Virginia Roberts at that time, and I agree with you. I interviewed her for 6 hours for my book, The Clintons' War on Women. I read every word of her lawsuit and her sworn testimony. She most definitely did not kill herself, but she says very specifically that Bill Clinton was talking to these two 16-year-olds who had been flown in especially for his entertainment, when she was told she had to leave the public event to have sex with somebody who Epstein was compelling her to have sex with. She also writes in her notes that it was always being filmed. So, yeah, I think Bill Clinton, given his track record, what do you think he was doing there? And he was on the plane multiple times. He's on the island multiple times. He even borrows Epstein's jet to fly to Asia to pick up a multi-million-dollar check for the Clinton Global Initiative from a guy who is a publicly known pedophile. It's all in my book, The Clintons' War on Women.
Roger, we have the chapter or the law, the entry from Virginia Roberts here in her diary, where she says, yes, I was often ordered to go, to let older men abuse me, and the FBI has those tapes. Epstein filmed these engagements, and Epstein has the footage. I've seen it in the control room. I've seen Epstein's footage. And these are not things that anybody questions, Roger. Like, everybody knows that this is the case. We've seen the hard drives. We've heard the FBI's own testimony about the hidden camera system inside of all of his mansions. So, I mean, it's Virginia, given the fact that you knew Virginia Roberts and we didn't, is she telling the truth here? And then why would the federal government say the opposite?
She's definitely telling the truth because she's not the only one saying it. Many of Epstein's victims settled with him to avoid questions, and took millions of dollars, but a handful of them did not read all those transcripts. So others make this same claim. I think it's important to recognize that in this particular case, I would like this all to come out because I see the left using this as a way to divide us. Right. I see it as a way to recycle the false claim that the Trump administration is not disclosing this material because Donald Trump did something wrong, which is absolutely untrue. And I prove in my book. So I think the sooner we can get all the facts here, the better. There is no question in my mind that Virginia Giuffre was murdered. And then there is the other question, which is...
Please expand on that. I hate to interrupt, but can you please unpack that?
Well,
what is it that gives you such certitude?
Her father, who I also interviewed, said that there was no... she was a very determined, spiritual woman who believed deeply in God. She bore these horrific scales. She was offered $31 million to shut up and go away by Epstein and then later Epstein's estate, and she refused. So I think she was determined to get the truth out here. So I think that is an important part of it.
So with your experience with Virginia Roberts and with your experience doing such a deep dive on this, Roger, can you answer the real question, which was Jeffrey Epstein in the sex trafficking business? He was found guilty of that. Ghislane Maxwell found guilty of that. Those aren't questions, actually. And yes. It's insane for the DOJ to come out and say, no, actually, that didn't happen. They were already found guilty. We have already moved past that. What was the operation here, Roger, given your experience in researching it? What was the actual operation? That seems to be the question. And where the hell did the money come from, Roger?
I think there's a couple answers. First of all, I believe, based on my own research, that Epstein was, in fact, working for the CIA, among other intelligence services. When Alexander Acosta, the U.S. attorney in Miami, who reviewed the state charges against Epstein, which were a slap on the wrist, the Palm Beach police chief gave the state's attorney, after a 6-month undercover investigation, the evidence to charge Epstein with 33 separate counts of child sex trafficking, identifying 33 girls. He also gave him, the state's attorney, a comprehensive case for statutory rape. The state's attorney turned around after Epstein hired Alan Dershowitz and Leon Black and Gerald Lefcourt, three of the most prominent criminal defense attorneys in the country. He got that negotiated down to 1 count of solicitation. That would be like a guy walking into a bar and soliciting a prostitute. It's a minor crime. So the police chief went to Alexander Acosta, the U.S. attorney, the federal attorney with jurisdiction over all of South Florida, and said, something's not right here. The prosecutor either got paid off or he was threatened. By the way, immediately after Epstein's conviction, the prosecutor quit his job, opened a law firm, and he was immediately retained by a number of Jeffrey Epstein's associates in their criminal defenses. So I think we know what happened there. Instead of opening the case and charging Epstein with the more sweeping crimes that the Trump administration charged him with, he sealed the case. He rubber stamped the state charges and he sealed the case. Now, a lawyer that I know, a lawyer, Benny, whose name you would recognize, a lawyer who's been in Washington for a long time, is very respected in Republican circles, was involved with Acosta's preparations for his confirmation as Secretary of Labor in the Trump administration. And he tells me that when in their practice session for the confirmations, he said, "What are you going to say if a senator asks you about your disposition of the Epstein case and why you didn't pursue greater charges against him?" And he said, "It's very simple. I'm just going to tell the truth. I was contacted by the CIA. I was told that he worked for them and that I was to seal the case." Now, I write that in my book. I noticed last week that Mr. Acosta won't answer questions when he's asked whether he knows that Epstein was an intelligence agent, at least for the CIA. We also know, of course, that Ghislane Maxwell is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, one of the most notorious Mossad agents, a press baron, one of the most notorious Mossad agents in history. Kind of a shady guy. You can read all about it. I and Steve Hoffenberg, who is no longer with us, deceased, but who was one of Epstein's earliest bosses on Wall Street and in business, insisted that his partner Epstein was doing work for Israel. I believe, Benny, that he was kind of an equal opportunity blackmailer. In other words, I think he worked for Israel. I think he worked for the United States. I think he gun running there. I think he worked for many, many people. And those many people are not interested in having their dirty laundry put out. Imagine the pressure right now from the British royal family, because we know of Prince Andrew's multiple times on the island. And we know from Virginia Giuffre's lawsuit that she was forced to have sex with him.
You know, Roger, it's wild because what you're saying here seems to, there's like it's a tinge of speculation to it. Yet here it is in black and white in an article from 25 years ago. Jeffrey Epstein bragged about being a CIA agent. There's really no speculation here, Roger, any longer. It's kind of all out in the open. The only reason that anybody cares about it is it seems like there is a very poor act of covering up right now from the Trump Department of Justice. And that, given your extreme connection to so many operators and players, my question to you is why? Why come out with that memo? Which on its face, first off, Roger, you're obviously a master of media, and a master of like handling crises, as you've done it for 40, 50 years in the Republican Party. Why do it this way? It seems insane. Everything from leaking it to left-wing Axios to not signing the memo, to banging on and on about the Epstein client list and the horrible crimes, and then just like doing a 180. It all seems so bewildering to me, and you probably know so much more than I do, Roger. So please.
Benny, this tactic is a little familiar to me. When BuzzFeed sued the Justice Department to get Robert Mueller's entire unredacted report released, because all the sections about me were redacted, the Justice Department released it in a press release at midnight on Election Day of 2020, the busiest media day of the year, the day that you don't want anything to be seen. And in that report, he was forced to admit that he found no evidence against me regarding Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration. He even went so far as to say, we looked at everything. It's fine. We couldn't find any other crime. It's all there in black and white. The New York Times never covered that. Neither did the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Associated Press. But it's on page 178 of Mueller's report. The judge had it during trial. and she withheld from my defense attorney. So I've seen this tactic of putting stuff out late at night on a holiday weekend in the hope that it'll get little notice. In this case, the case is so, shall we say, incendiary that it was always going to get notice. Look, I'm going to give Pam Bondi the benefit of the doubt in the sense that I don't think she knew much about this case to begin with. Unfortunately for her, she didn't read my book. If she had, she would have known a lot more. I think that the things that she saw initially, which she found shocking, were things that you, Benny, and I, and others who've been following the case already knew about, but that she didn't know about because she hadn't followed the case. But as far as the DVDs and the hard drives that were removed from his place in New York, his place on the island, the ranch in New Mexico, as well as his Paris apartment, I believe DVDs and hard drives were released from all four. I have little doubt whatsoever that they no longer exist. I think they were destroyed by Christopher Wray almost immediately after they were obtained. So when Kash Patel tells us we don't have that material, we can't look at the videos to identify the adults in them, obviously protecting the identities of the victims. I've never thought there was a list per se. I thought a list could be compiled simply by looking at the videos. And perhaps also there could be revealing information in Epstein's emails or his text messages. So the phone book is a perfect example. I had the little black book when I wrote my book on the Clintons, but not everyone in the little black book was involved in sex trafficking. I mean, the guy who did his lawn is in there. The plumber is in there. Donald Trump is in there. There are a number of people who I think he knew, but that doesn't mean that they were guilty of pedophilia. So I've never thought there was a client list per se, but I did think that the government could compile a client list through the evidence that is available.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, Roger, we really hope that the pressure that is being applied on this, because it's out of care and concern for the administration and so many of our friends that are doing incredible work, and we don't want to see that work tainted by what many perceive as a cover-up or as not a full disclosure or transparency. One final very quick thing, Roger, since you brought up the Mueller report. Would you like to see James Comey raided at 4 a.m. with the Fox News cameras rolling outside of his house?
Newsmax would be okay with me. But the point, I guess, here is very simple. I think that is going to happen. The CIA's report last week was helpful, but it was a shallow dive into Russian collusion. The House Intelligence Committee, under the leadership of Congressman Rick Crawford, has been working closely with Tulsi Gabbard. There is much, much, much more in terms of classified documents regarding the origins and operations of the Russian collusion hoax. So yes, I think John Brennan, the admitted communist who was the head of the CIA, and who really is the guy who forced the false Steele dossier into the president's intelligence community briefing so it could then be weaponized against Trump. James Comey, who lied multiple times to Congress, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, Ron the Rat Rosenstein. Every one of these people, I think, not only should be indicted, I actually think they're going to be indicted. FBI, you now have an FBI investigation into Comey and Brennan. Tulsi Gabbard is working very hard with Chairman Crawford to get all of this material declassified and released to the public. And at that point, I think the Attorney General will have no choice. That said, let's recognize that charges brought in the District of Columbia will be very hard to win convictions. You remember when John Durham conducted his 5-year investigation, slowly taking 5 years to make sure the statute of limitations against Hillary and Podesta and Rice and Comey and Brennan and all of the other perps had expired. The good news is there's no expiration on the crime of treason. He chose to charge a lawyer at the very, very bottom of this totem pole, a guy named Sussman, a minor actor in the whole drama. Charging Sussman is like charging the guy who's driving the getaway car for double parking while you let the bank robbers get away. The problem is virtually every judge in D.C. is epically biased, as the judge in my case was, who we now know withheld that Mueller report from my defense attorneys, even though we asked for it. You will not get a fair jury. You won't get a balanced and fair jury. You'll get a politicized jury because of the jury pool. And the biggest problem in our Justice Department is, while there may be good people at the top, everybody below them, not just in Washington, but in every federal district in the country, are Biden holdovers who are working to undermine the new U.S. attorneys. This is happening particularly in the southern and eastern districts of New York, but it's happening across the country. It amazes me, one more thing which I cannot resist. A federal court rules that we no longer have to put fluoride in our water. This is a huge victory for those who believe in health and want to make America healthy again. But the Trump administration, Justice Department, is going to appeal that ruling. That is insanity.
Roger, that is something that is actually quite near and dear to my heart. It's also near and dear to the heart of our next guest, Laura Trump, who cares so very much about health. I want to have you back. We are up against a hard out here, Roger, so I appreciate your time on this and your insight. We'll have you rebooked and we can talk about fluoride. I'd be happy to do it. Everybody needs to follow Roger Stone. He's also right about this, by the way. There's new leaks or new information coming out of the DOJ that they're setting the precedent for some vast, sweeping charges for Russiagate and for some of the other greater cover-ups. And we have so much to cover on that. Roger Stone, you can follow him. He has nearly 1 million subscribers on X. He has an incredible show, and he's one of the wisest men around. Thank you, Roger.
The key thing here, Benny, is we cannot let this deter us from Donald Trump's mission.
Correct.
He is closing our borders. He's bringing us economic prosperity. He's protecting the country. He's got men out of women's sports. We cannot let this divide us and get the greatest president in my lifetime distracted from his successful mission.
Here's where you can find Roger's latest book, and it's The Stone Zone. This is Clinton's War on Women is one that you can pick up if you want to see what's really happening here with Epstein. So Godspeed, Roger. Thank you.
Thank you.